So, in a world where everything's basically gone except our discussions of Joe Exotic
Yeah.
and Tiger King,
Yes.
which has created some of the greatest
So
memes in the
we
history
all
of the
can
internet,
join together
it
and
is it is fantastic to see
we
what
can
it's
all agree
created.
of what?
It it it
Huh?
it brings about feelings of pardon and seriously
Holy crap.
and wow, did that just happen? And are these real people with the beard? It's yeah. It's just that was my favorite meme. Tiger King, just give me one normal person, anybody, one normal person. Tiger King, nope. And there's the guy with the beard on the motorbike. And this doesn't compare to that. And this has lasers and aliens and weird crap all through it. But compared to that, this is just normal. This is everyday stuff. This is standard. All right. Talia Laris was a young woman, and considering her position as leader of Volterres, she was certainly under the gun. She had stayed away from military affairs, though she had approved sending Mike Translow to check into things taking place near Earth. She wanted to help a world that was so much like their own, even if they were rather crude and primitive. When Gora had visited General Rightly, she had not attended, as she knew this was military business, not the type of thing that required negotiations. She knew it wasn't a pleasurable visit, but she didn't see it as a big deal, not in her mind, anyways. Gora had visited many times before. She had seen nothing before that visit which would lead her to believe there was any reason for any alarm whatsoever. Altil had always been at the top of her list of issues. Many within her population wanted them dealt with and wanted her to fight. Her world to fight a war with Altil and free Altair from their oppression. Talia was sympathetic, but she was also realistic. War was not something her world really wanted, not whenever the Poles asked them, anyways. There was a divide between those who wanted to fight and those who wanted to stay out of it. Volterres was a world of peace and a world ruled by democratic decisions. Even though 48% of the people were willing to fight Altil, that left 52% who were not willing to fight at all. She had to listen to the majority, or she would appear to be a dictator and would risk civil war. She had to do what the majority wanted in all talks, no matter what kind of bad taste it left in her mouth with everything that had been happening. Volterres is a peaceful planet, but it's on the verge. There's always that on the verge. There was actually one of the books that I wrote when I was a kid was all about a civil war between the people who dwelt in the cities, who were basically your government, and then people who were your rural population and what they wanted for the world. It was two completely different points of view. So I hint at it here. Um, Volterres was a world of peace, ruled by democratic decisions. Da da da. Okay. The split opinions of Volterres extended to economic issues, social issues, and pretty near anything else people were passionate about. I'm glad we don't have that problem right now. I'm really glad I wrote this 10 years ago. So, you know. It was Talia's job to go the way of the majority, right or wrong. It gave her sleepless nights with some of the things she had to do. Standing down against Altel was always a tough call, popular with the people or not. She knew what they were capable of and that they were not to be trusted. Everything changed today and she knew it. She had awakened this morning with a feeling of dread in her heart. It was something she could not explain and couldn't shake. Now she'd heard about the insane events near Earth and then spilling over onto her world, she knew that that feeling had been the right one. The military worked for her. She knew that, and the people knew that. She wondered if Mike Translow knew that, as she hadn't even named him as the new commander of the forces. He'd been appointed, and that appointment flew in the face of the democracy she held so dear. Now she had to come up with some sort of concrete plan and assert herself as the leader, or people would start following Mike Translow, and then the whole planet would descend into civil war. Talia was barely 25, considered attractive by almost anyone you might ask, and her dark hair and dark eyes hid her fears well. She was a good speaker, persuasive when she had to be, and she was born into this position thanks to her father, Cordell Laris, a military man, best known for designing advanced weapons and crafts. He had then become the leader to a large mountainous region of the planet before being elected to the position that Talia currently held. She had grown up in the public eye, she'd been adored by millions, and when she decided to run for the position her father had taken before her, she won by a landslide despite being only 21 at the time. She was the youngest person ever to hold this position, and she felt a great deal of pressure to make the mature and responsible decision at all times. This was her destiny. As she stares out the window, the sun's setting on this insane day, she wonders if she really is cut out for this job. Before she can think too deeply on this, there's a knock on her door. Come in, she says without turning away. Missy Condor enters the room. Missy's the official assistant to Talia and is her spokesman as well as her closest friend. Talia, has there been further news? Do I even want to know? She asks with a half grin, looking over her shoulder at Missy. Missy nods. It's been a trying day, to be sure. Gora would like to have a word with you regarding the unilateral statement made by Mike Translow. Bring him up, Talia says, pouncing on this chance to fix something she sees as being broken. She heads to her desk, turns her chair to face the big screen, which is emerging from behind the wall. She folds her hands in her lap, takes on the demure and political type look. It's the same look she gives her people during speeches and public appearances of any type. She really was born to do this. She's looking presidential. Gora's face appears on screen, and it appears he's been crying. This sight would be enough to make anyone do a double take, but Talia maintains her facade in the face of something so bizarre. Gora, I'd hoped to hear from you. Gora nods. When I heard that it had been confirmed my people were involved, I let everyone know that I would not stand for this. I have taken steps to show our people do not look kindly upon these actions. The camera Gora is standing in front of turns to the right, and we see charred remains of Thil and Haral lying in a heap in his shuttle. Who are they? Talia asks, almost shocked out of her perfect stature. Generals who ordered this shameful action. I have every intention to pay Earth back personally for this affront to their people. This is not the Altel I believe in. My people only want the same things you do, and I cannot tolerate this insolence. Sabal is to be terminated upon his return to my world, along with the other soldiers who survived a battle with these courageous Earthlings, Gora explains. Talia doesn't buy all of this, but it does give her a decent way out of what could have been a bad situation here. We need to have a council investigate what happened in a joint manner. I agree we don't want to escalate this further. My people have time and time again voted down any plans to go to war, and Mike Translow doesn't speak at all for my world. Gora smiles. I am so very glad to hear that. General Rightly had felt that way as well. It is good that we can find common ground between our peoples. We encountered so much fear and hate based on our appearance. It's so very wrong. Talia can agree on that point. I want to foster an understanding here, she says. I want to meet with Mike Translow and request he hand control of our forces back to Cale Rightly as he was not elected to that position. That would be most fair of you. I had hoped we could foster an agreement between us to prevent the escalation of hostilities where it is not required, Gora says, barely able to contain his joy at this turn of events. The puppet is dancing on its strings with no knowledge it's being manipulated. And that goes into the next scene. That's the end.
No, it's not.
All right. The forces file back through the same way as they had filed off the planet. They have the Altelian prisoners in tow and now seem satisfied with their haul thus far. Anyways, Mike is there to greet them, his wife at his side. He's not letting her out of his sight for a long while if he has anything to say about it. Good to see all of you, he says to his troops. I wanted you to know that. He's interrupted by an electronic beep which causes him to roll his eyes. He has been told what that noise means in his previous visits to the office just vacated by Cale Rightly. Mike answers the call and a video image of Talia Laris appears on the screen, which we see behind his desk. Mike Translow, good to see you alive and well, she says, though her tone is without any emotion whatsoever. This doesn't sound like a congratulatory call, he says, folding his arms across his chest as he speaks to her. I'm afraid we need to send the prisoners of war to Altel in exchange for a commission, which will do a full investigation of what happened at the Earthling arcologies. It will be a joint venture of our people and Altel's as well, she explains. There's still no emotion when she speaks. Mike looks around at the other troops present in shock before he faces her image again. Ma'am, that's insane. Altel coordinated an attack meant to exterminate humanity on Earth, as well as our homeworld, and you're making deals with them? There's more, she adds. In part of our negotiations with Altel, we agree that Cale Rightly should be the leader of our forces, as you are not elected to become the military commander. Ma'am, with all due respect, you are signing the death warrant for our people, Mike says, trying hard not to lose his temper while his blood boils. Officers around him are appalled, and even Talia does a double take as a statement. I'm almost lost my wife. I nearly died. A lot of people died back there, and I'll be damned if I'm going to watch you destroy all of their sacrifices. Over 1 million people are dead, Talia. You cannot hand these prisoners back to them. Sabal, in particular, needs to be locked away for as long as he lives. He should rot in our prisons for the atrocities he's brought. I have been assured he will be dealt with in a harsh manner, Talia says, trying to establish her control over the conversation. Well, you've been lied to. I hate to leave you, but I don't have a way to finish that thought, he says, and he hangs up. The image fades. The electronic beeps heard again right away as she calls back. Mike turns to his troops. There's no way I'm standing for this, so who's for a revolt at this point? There is no answer from the troops present. They all look at one another, knowing that this is on the verge of something even bigger than the overthrow of Cale Rightly. When the ruler of this planet speaks, it makes it tougher to stand by Mike. Mike sees their hesitation and he hangs his head for a moment before he speaks again. We've been through a lot. I've smelled the results of an Altilian extermination. There is no way that their government was not fully aware of what they were doing. They picked our sister planet due to our evolutionary similarities, and they intend to wipe out any humans in this galaxy. I simply cannot stand by and watch that happen. But what can we do? One officer asked Mike. We're powerless if the government's against us and people won't support a war. They're already spinning this to look like terrorist activity instead of what it was, an attempt to figure out what makes us tick and how to destroy us. I don't want to sit here, but we can't ignore the phone calls from Talia Laris and pretend she isn't there. Mike steps towards the officer and places a hand on his shoulder. Name, rank, age, please. Dalton Wesson, Sergeant, 24 years old, sir. Dalton, there's a time to do what's easy and there's a time to do what's right. I'm going to do what's right. Mike reaches into his pocket, pulls out his personal transportation device. I'll leave it here I'll leave if I have to. I'm not standing here watching what happens. Earth may not be advanced like we are, but since their people have been guinea pigs, I would imagine they'd be more receptive to my message. You can't leave, Mike, another officer says. Dradgen then steps forward. It would appear that we are ahead of the people. This is not a good thing. Godspeed, Mike. Do not lose your way. You must come home when we are ready for you. You can't let General Rightly be fooled again, Mike says, looking Dradgen in the eye. Dradgen manages a smile. I have my ways to convince him, if I have to. You have nothing to worry about there, Mike. What happened today will never be forgotten. Mike looks over at his wife and she embraces him. Though she doesn't say anything here. There isn't anything she has left to say, but what is a sad but necessary decision Mike has made, and she'll support. They leave the room together and head from there to their vehicle and make their way home. Katie hasn't been prouder of Mike than she is right now. He's been a good man to her, and his ability to make her happy is never in doubt. Her family had once questioned her decision to marry a military man who was so ambitious. He had been very honest from day one about his intentions to become a military commander, and he didn't let any of the naysayers influence his belief in himself. As they reach home, Mike casually makes his way into their room to pack. Katie finally had to ask him something. His demeanor seems to be off considering what they'd just been through. Why are you so content? He winks at her. You see, my dear, I have not left as empty-handed as I appear. For one, I have full control here. Dradgen and I knew what would happen with this planet. I was named leader by the military and the troops supported it. There's no law against that, so Talia is talking out of her ass when it comes to her precious democracy. The democratic process does not apply to the military, but we need for her to think that it does. I especially need Altel to think I'm not in the command of anything. I also need to head to Earth for something very special. Yeah, you lost me, she says. It's rare that Mike puts one over on her, but clearly he has, and she wonders how much he's been hiding and for how long. 5 years ago, I was approached by Doug Targer. He was the man Talia beat in the election. He was also a man who saw what Altel was up to and wanted to do something about it. He wanted to, but the people of this bloody planet were too big on peace to risk going to war. It was the same then as it is now. This planet will have to be faced with certain death before they even consider going to war. He knew this. He knew this was how it would turn out, but I always hoped to be in the back of my mind he could be wrong. Now, he told me someday I would command forces here. I didn't want him to be wrong on that one, of course. I was big on that idea. He told me there was one project which the government had turned down. They stated they were not in the war business as much as they were in the preventing war business. He, like myself, did not believe our supposed allies in Altel were doing anything but waiting for the right moment to strike. He must have spent millions of his own money on things that the government figured was going to agriculture. One day, he comes to me all excited about what his money had done for us. He makes me swear not to reveal to anyone what he had done, or it would risk Altel killing all of us. I don't think even he knew how right he was at the time. What did he do? she asks, her heart racing as it always did when Mike got this excited about something. Mike finishes packing one suitcase and starts packing another. See, Volterrans is an innocent-minded world, simple if you will. We have the technology, but we don't have the devious thinking that's required to go up against a place like Altel. Geyer controlled our policies, and now his son Gore is doing the same. It's really pathetic. I couldn't be more disenfranchised with our government at this point, but even then I wasn't a big fan. The next time Doug came to see me, he let me know that we have a chance here. He had been working with designers on something special, but he wasn't working on it here. He established what he called the Peace Restorer Civil Fund, and stated it was a plan hatched by Temp, of all places. Katie laughs. Temp hasn't had a decent idea in ages. True, but our government's actually less advanced than theirs in this area. You see, the fund was merely a front for what Doug was really working on. Can you tell me what it was? She asks, stomping her foot on the floor as Mike continues to delay. See, wormholes take a lot of energy, he continues. That's why we have only had them on a personal level. Rumor has it, Altel found a way to harness the power of the sun to create a wormhole large enough for an entire fleet to pass through if need be. Well, now we have something that could be able to do things which are almost as impressive. He says with a chuckle as he finishes packing, Your chariot awaits. He says as they head out of the bedroom. I haven't packed yet. She answers. Well, then make it quick, he says, motioning for her to hurry up. He is anxious to show her what he's talking about, as this day isn't nearly as lost as she may think. Here you go, all finished.
No, keep going.
All finished. All done.
It's really cold in here.
Okay, I'll turn this on for you then.
Oh, thank you.
It's barely 20 degrees.
It is. It's
So-
quite chilly.
That's Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Celsius.
Oh, 20 and Fahrenheit would
68.
literally be freezing.
It's 68. Fahrenheit. 20 degrees. So,
There,
all right.
put my hood on.
So we're into chapter 12. It's a collection of people who've made it to this point. They know there's a lot of work ahead, and they've nominated John Webster to be their leader. He stands at the head of the battle bridge in Arcology 1237. He never dreamed anything like this would be happening, that people would be following him like this. There should be something amazing that he could, some amazing words he could use at a moment like this. We need a name, Nathan says, to get things started. Division 1237, Carissa suggests. We're bound to this place from this day going forward. John nods. I agree. Division 1237 is a suitable name. We saw a lot of good people go down here on this day, and it's going to take a long time for us to deal with it. I do believe we have the makings of a really good group here. He then holds up the weapons Mike gave them. We also have some reverse engineering to do, I guess. I don't know how we'll see Miker's people. I don't know that we'll see Miker's people again. I have to assume that we're on our own. We'll see Mike again, Kristen says. He and Dragon will both be back. Nathan manages a laugh. I almost crapped myself when the big blue alien came through that black hole thing they used. Wormhole, I guess, or whatever. I'm glad he was on our side because I would hate to be against him or his people. He's so wiry and tough looking. So what happens to Arcology 1237 now, Craig asks. I mean, it's in one piece and all. The threat's gone. They're going to perform a sweep of the service areas and to declare it completely safe, but there's no way that people are going to want to live there now. I'm awaiting word from Earth as I've made a unique request, John says. What's that? Chris asks. I want us to use Arcology 1237 here as our base of operations. Earth is hardly in any position to engage in an interstellar war anyway, so this is as good a base as any. Of course, we'll have to convert some of the areas on this place into a more military theme than it currently has. We'll need weapons on the hull of the ship and repel attacks that'll definitely come. I'd like to acquire some form of shielding as well. John pauses and looks at the map behind him of Earth and all the guns nearest to all the ships nearest to them. All of that is our responsibility. I don't know if reverse engineering a ray gun or two will be enough, but we have to show some courage here and stand up for what's right. About damn time someone did, Craig says, shaking his head. I mean, we assume we're at war, but we haven't heard from the government yet on this. I know they're having some sort of world summit to discuss the situation, but most of those places can't agree at the best of times. They would need a council to decide the color of the sky. I think the summit's just for looks anyway, since they usually are. John wishes he could assure Craig it isn't that bad, but it is, and he knows it is. People will be frightened of trying to fight a species so far advanced beyond their own. Everyone fears the unknown, and most will run from it rather than face it. Centuries pass on Earth, and things like racism, wars between upper class and middle class, religious zealots killing themselves in the name of their deity. These things all still take place. Some of the elements might hide beneath the surface, but they're still there waiting to pop up at the wrong moment. With this group, while this group was destined to stay together and grow into something special, the world spinning below them was still backwards in many ways. It was up to them not only to defend this world from attackers, but to defend it from itself. The young and relatively inexperienced group was taking on a lot of responsibility. As they sit around the table and finally allow the events of the day to sink in, the silence is deafening. A tear runs down Tanya's cheek as she finally mourns the losses that they suffered. Christina puts her head down on her desk and feels that she could sleep for the next 10 years. Nathan looks around the room, shaking his head at how oddly this entire thing's played out. John's ready to speak again to them when there is a signal telling them there's an incoming shuttle to the docking bay. We have company? Kristen sighs as she gets to her feet. Why are they here now? We haven't even finished evacuating anyone who has been living here. They're testing survivors, too. There might still be people infected on board. They don't want to waste time here. It's all about appearances. If political figures take their sweet time in responding to a major crisis, they look like major pricks. Isn't that true? Yep, that's definitely true. Now, having met quite a few political figures in my time, I can attest to them being major pricks most of the time. I wrote this a decade ago. Just throwing that out there. This is going to take some major patience on my part, John says with a sigh as he leads them out of the battle bridge and towards the visitors. The arcology rightfully should be under quarantine until it has been proven that everything is safe. That said, the public wants these people out of harm's way, so protocols being ignored, and they're doing a simple screening to make sure no one seems to be crazy on their way out. It's a very dangerous way to handle things, but it's a knee-jerk reaction from political figures who are trying to appease a fickle populace. The sooner they get people out, the sooner the issue should go away. The head of this visit is appointed by Voice of This World, Allison Hannon. Young by world speaker standards, Allison wasn't one to mince words, and on her own she had quite the feisty personality. In this setting, however, that was muted to play ambassador as Earth stood on the verge of a huge turning point in history. When she accepted the job as the voice... I'm just trying to think. This is another scene. When she accepted the job as the voice of world's minions, she never imagined something this major taking place. This morning when she awoke, Earth was alone in the universe, and now they knew there were other inhabited worlds out there. They weren't alone, and this was a mixed blessing. If it proved to be a blessing at all. The great debate was one of whether or not they should actually fight Altel at all. They were so vastly superior to Earth in every fashion, maybe it was best to try and negotiate with them. Allison was not on the side of the negotiators. She believed these aliens would kill them all if they tried to sweep this under the carpet and pretend it never happened. They might not be able to win a war against Altel, but they could not sit back after what had happened on 3 arcologies now. This was the worst terrorist attack in Earth's history and easily the most prolonged. It was a call to war, the best one that Allison could think of. As she steps onto the arcology and off of her ambassadorship, she can feel that death is in the air. Indeed, she's one level above 48 right now, and she knows that. It's eerily quiet and abandoned. It's creepy walking here now, with only 2 bodyguards at her side, their boots echoing off the metallic floor as they walk. Only hours ago, this hallway would have been filled with families from all over the world, people here to get away from life on Earth to try to build a better future. As she reaches an observation deck, she can't help but step out onto it. It's a small bubble of glass along the side of the arcology, which gives the illusion of floating in space and tends to make weak-stomached people ill, though it isn't as intense as the glass-floored bottom of the arcology. It doesn't bother Allison, and instead makes her feel better about things. The universe, at the very least, is beautiful and is very vast. The scars here will heal, and the bigger picture has to be brighter than this portion of the tale. She does continue to walk around the level and sees John Webster leading his men and women towards her. She manages to smile and reaches out a hand to John. He smiles back and accepts a handshake. "No cameras?" he asks, but in a tone not indicating disappointment. "John Webster, how long has it been?" 2 years at least. Last time I saw you, you were in charge of Western North American politics. Now you've worked your way to planetary spokesman. You've worked up quickly. I see world leader in your future at this dizzying rate," he says with a grin. Sometimes it's important to maintain focus. That's what really brings me here. Earth's at a crossroads. We have to maintain our focus in the face of certain doom. The footage doesn't lie. Our invaders are far superior to us in terms of their weaponry. If we go to war, it won't be easy to win. It may not even be easy to challenge them at all. The people are demanding that something be done, and I agree, though many will not want to get involved. John passes her a handheld computer. Mike gave me this when he gave us our weapons. It has some information on it we may find helpful. Apparently, Altel is a rather private world. No one goes to that world and lives to talk about it. They do all their negotiations off-world, either in orbit around Altel or on a different planet altogether. They use Altair for a lot of their meetings, and especially if it involves negotiations. I'm not going to lie to you, Allison. I don't see how the hell we win this war. I'd personally be shocked if Earth agreed to even go to war, despite what we've seen here. It certainly would be hard to sway the people that we have a chance, and they will want to turn the other way and hope that the problem goes away when they do so. Allison shakes her head. We can't allow that. Many of the leaders of Earth know it. Your petition to take immediate ownership of Arcology 1237 has been approved. We also have commissioned architects for a new design to these things, something more secure and less filled with secret passages. We may have to mothball all the current arcologies over time. As expensive as that would be, it's likely necessary going forward. There's also been progress with terraforming Mars. The real trick is getting temperatures to a livable range. It's a work in progress, but we're confident the first Mars settlers can be in place within 18 months. There also have been encouraging reports from scientists about a moon in the Cursor system, if we can find a way to get there. All of this hinges on a possible violent clash with a new foe, and we need you to be at the ready to deal with this new threat. What the world leaders want me to ask you is a real simple question. What else can we do for you? John smiles and turns to the others. This is going far better than I expected. And that's the end of that scene. So Division 1237 is born and exists straight into the next part. And then the actual war part isn't until the third volume. So for people like, oh, I can't wait for the big war. Yeah, that's in the third volume. Because I wanted to build up to it. So that's not until the third part. Where it's just like, hey, those guys are pricks. Yep, well, we'll deal with that 2 books from now. So there you go. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in again. Yeah, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. I don't know how somebody would browse their way through and just find this video.
Right?
It's part of my spiel.
The book.
It's part of my spiel.
I said that wasn't that last video.
Yeah, it's part of my spiel.
That.
As well as be safe, wash your hands, take care, and if you have any information on the disappearance of Ron Lewis, by all means, let people know. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Or Don Lewis. Again. Don Lewis. Not Ron. Don Lewis. Face? Don Lewis, whose wife is, I'm sure, a wonderful lady, and knows nothing of whatever happened to Don Lewis. There's some differing opinions, but hey, you know, that's how this thing works. Thank you guys so much for everything, and I will certainly talk to you guys again soon.